Hi, Monish. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Monish. Good morning, Preeti. Audible. Hi, Vikas.
Yes. Good morning to every one of you. Thank you for joining in and waiting for the opportunity. This is
Uh, Manish. Manish, the are the mics disabled by any chance? Vikas is looking into it. Let me see because this has to be a
Uh,
little
I
interactive.
have enabled the mic.
Okay, thanks, Aniket. So,
Yeah, good morning.
good
Enabled
morning,
now.
Vikas. Yes, enabled now, right?
Thank you.
a very warm welcome to all of you who have joined this amazing informative webinar. So thank you for your time, providing us the opportunity to interact with you. So this is a webinar about multi-cloud management, about AI and MLOps. But before we start, I just like to give you a brief overview about Synergetics and what we do. So Synergetics is a born cloud company which is which was established a decade ago, and it is headquartered in Mumbai. And we have a team of 80 plus specialists who have successfully tackled various top accounts in BFSI, pharma, startups, ISVs, manufacturing, and even other verticals. And this has been possible through our engagement model, where we believe in investing our customers and we educate our customers. So similarly, like this webinar, we have multiple webinars that are conducted throughout the month, throughout the year, and weekly we have various webinars where we talk about executive briefs, certification readiness workshops, architecture workshops, and learning services. So if you want to upgrade yourself on a weekly basis, you can subscribe to our newsletter, and for the same, the details will be shared post the webinar. We advise our customer. We know that a lot of current architects are legacy systems, and we help them re-architect and refactor their legacy systems. Then we implement the migration, the modernization, the innovation, and the deployment part, where we handhold the customers and ensuring that there is a smooth collaboration between our customers and our company. Once all of this is done, then comes the managed part. We know it's a lot of hassle to manage the backend IT, and through our managed services, we take that burden off you so that you can concentrate on your core business, and we will provide 24/7 support so that you don't have to worry about a thing. So over a decade, as we have a decade or long experience, we have developed expertise in the following solutions, be it data center modernization, data estate modernization, application migration, application modernization. And this will be delved in more detail, particularly cloud management managed services will be delved in more detail during the webinar itself. And these are the services that Synergetics provides. Project services in migration, modernization, innovation, and deployment. Managed services about incident management, infrastructure management, advanced workload management, and others. In technical consulting, we deploy our own resources to your organization so that there is smooth collaboration in designing and architecture of your IT infrastructure. We are a Microsoft partner, and being a Microsoft partner, we get the incentive program, and we believe in extending the benefit of incentives to our customers as well. So if you want to know more about it, we can discuss it post the event. These are some of the top accounts that we have. And as you can see, from various sectors, we have the top manufacturing, the top pharmaceutical companies, and the top BFSI accounts, which shows the trust in the technical competency and subject matter expertise in a synergetics and its team. And this is because Microsoft over the years have awarded us with various credentials. Some of them have been displayed on the board for data AI, infrastructure, as well as digital and app innovation. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Anand Prabhu, who is the speaker of the day. Mr. Anand Prabhu has been in the industry for more than 2 decades and has been a principal architect in various application migration, modernization, innovation, and various data infrastructure related project services. So without further ado, over to you, Anand. Thank you.
Thanks, Hardik, for this wonderful introduction. Good morning, everyone. Uh, I hope the mic is clear and the speech is clear.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, thanks, Hardik. So before we start displaying the slides and talking on the slide, can I have a small discussion with, as the audience is a little low in number, so at least we can have an healthy conversation with Monish, Preeti, Vikas, right, and Ashish, right? This is Ashish also joining in. So can you just help me understand what is current scenario, thought process in terms of multi-cloud? What is that you're looking out for as a part of this workshop? Preeti, if you can narrate that, please.
Yeah, sure. Hi. So I'm a manager for a particular team, and we do own a lot of legacy systems. So definitely, we won't immediately jump into a full cloud version. It will be definitely a multi-cloud version. So I wanted to
Okay.
understand, like, what is something I can take away from this, so that we can go back to the customer, because they are also in that exploration stage. So I just wanted to see, what I could, take away from this particular session.
Okay. So you said that you are a part of a team or leading a team which is into multi-cloud, multiple applications, and these to be migrated, right? So there will
Right,
be a customer's mandate, and that's what you and your team will be helping them to move, right?
right,
So this is from an applications perspective.
correct.
Okay, fine. Uh, I noted. Vikas, can I have a open mic?
Yeah, we are actually I'm an Oracle team, and we have
Correct.
various requirements actually. So
Okay.
we are looking for solutions and to understand if something will match our requirements, and we can have.
Okay, fine. I am talking of multi-cloud. Let me see if there are any questions. You can stop me. It is related to, because it's still more in terms of an open multi-cloud scenario, adopting multiple OEM clouds. At places where you think you have a questions, you can raise hands and see how much of I can help you out. If there are any other questions which are not getting addressed here, because we can have a separate session for that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, hi, Monish.
Hey, good morning.
Good.
Thanks, Energetic team, for setting this up.
Okay.
Informative information and helping customers know what is possible. Art of
Okay.
possibility is always great. So I am from HDFC Life. We
Yes.
already are multi-cloud,
Yes.
and a multi-cloud hybrid cloud is the way to go. Uh, so, as part of the session, would like to understand as to how do we manage multi-cloud better.
Okay. So,
Uh,
I think I will be able to help you here, because this entire discussion is all about that. Any other outcomes, Monish, you are looking out from this program?
So, multi-cloud, being multi-cloud, there are multiple challenges.
Correct.
While it sounds good to be on multi-cloud uh, and it's a de-risking model, and while there are a lot of benefits of it, but it brings in a lot of challenge in terms of governance, technology, skill sets, data,
Yes.
security.
Yes. Yes,
the
yes. There
federation
are
across different
a
clouds.
lot many.
And the
There are.
list can keep going on and on. While the benefits also the long list, but the challenge is also multifold. So
It's a
how do
long
we?
rope there. It's a long
Yes.
rope there.
How do we kind of set up the right practices while some of the kind of going to multi-cloud was born out of certain specific business needs, and we are
Mhm.
already there. So as to
Mhm.
how do we kind of start setting up the governance practices so that before we become big on multiple clouds,
Okay.
we have the right guardrails put in there.
Correct, correct, correct. Fine. Noted. And actually, you will get most out of this, right? I'll touch base of all your concerns because that's how the alignment is. So you'll be one of the bigger beneficiary of this particular discussions which we will have. I'll try to keep this as a discussion where we can assist, we can discuss cases, and that's how I am trying to put this so that we can, because the audience is little small. Otherwise, it will have been a one-way kind of scenario in terms of delivery, right? So I'll require your interactions as well in between so that we can help for the larger audience, right?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Hi, Rajesh. Sure. Thank you. Hi, Rajesh.
Yeah, hi Anand.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
Rajesh, if you
already
can
we
narrate.
yeah as already we had discussed in a one-to-one meeting earlier that we want to go on Azure cloud for our Oracle DB and our application. So I just wanted to see what are the benefits we can get out of hybrid cloud system. As rightly said by Monish also, I had heard about it, and Preeti also. Same thing. I am also looking for that only. So just I want
Okay.
to go through this.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Hi, Ashish. Good morning. Ashish. Hello. Ashish, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Okay. Fine. I see that those are the ideas. Ashish, once he joins in, may be speaking. Let me know, Aniket, if my screen is visible.
It is visible.
Okay. Fine. Thank you. So this is the agenda in the way I have organized this particular discussion, where we say why multi-cloud and how the multi-cloud adoption has to happen and how it has actually happened. Managed services provider, which is a key pillar for your cloud adoption framework. So we'll discuss more here. Then looking into from a new age scenarios of IT operations, AI ops will be the new norm that will happen very soon. And then are we ready for that? Right? That is how we'll look into. And then I'll touch base on what is MLOps and two slider in terms of why MLOps. Right? So this has been the I have carved out a agenda saying that this is what we will discuss on. So let's start. So this is where we speak in terms of why multi-cloud. Rightly said, Monish, right? It's a new norm, right? Everyone has a cloud there. Everyone has started adopting cloud as cloud being the foundation of digital transformation. So whosoever is having a digital transformation journey is having a cloud enabled or he has already deployed workloads on cloud, right? Now, on one side, there are organizations or IT companies which are building new age applications, and because the benefits given by cloud native services, they tend to be on the cloud faster. And on the other side, where we have all the CXO community and application owners and what multiple BU units head or the cell heads, right? For them, the mandate is very clear, saying that whatever applications, whatever workloads you're deploying, cloud first is the mandate, right? And then finally, if you really look into from an IT perspective, where we say that due to virtualization, right? Client virtualization, cloud has been started. Cloud adoption has gone multifolds. So this is the new state in terms of the current digital transformation journey with most of the customers. They may be the cloud has been adopted or is in phase of adoption, but at least 70 to 80% of people have started moving there, or one small or the larger piece is already there on the cloud. So this is a new norm. So everyone will eventually be there on cloud. Then there will be certain enterprises or where the IT operations are much larger. Multi-cloud will be there for a long time to go, right? So when we say multi-cloud, why are the organizations adopting multi-cloud, right? Some of them say that let's avoid lock-in. The best way is give flexibility and resiliency by saying that okay, if let's not have one single vendor, or let's don't get hook up to a particular get ourselves hooked to a particular vendor or get ourselves tied to a vendor. Let's have disparity in terms of have multiple vendors on the shop floor, so that there is no single vendor arm twisting us during the service delivery. Then on the technological side, they say that there has to be a flexibility to in offering with the best computing environment. So wherever the best computing environment is there, we will deploy our workload there. Even today, at some places where we run through the pre-sales calls and all, they still are actually most of the people are still evaluating, what is cheaper, what server is cheaper, what compute is available, and that's all. No complaints there, but they are just starting the journey. But with multi-cloud, this will be often saying that if a particular workload has to be optimized, then in a little matured scenario, they see what is there on Azure, what is there on GCP, what dependencies are there on the workload, and then they try to identify where this workload should go. Right. So that is the kind of flexibility IT operation shop floors are looking at. And then they guide their workloads on not saying that your workload will go here. Then it allows organization to benefit from best of the breed innovations. So basically, whatever innovations that are available with the cloud native services getting onboarded, those benefits you get if you are a part of that cloud. So which may give you at some places certain cost reductions, certain risk reductions. But that's how every organization will try to manage and hedge their risks there. Then eventually you'll also look into certain organizations discussing in terms of what is the cost from an OEM provider, so that they better negotiate the pricing at the start of the year, saying that we have deployed so many workloads, my workload size is 30% on say cloud A and 20% on cloud B, and I have another 80% to be in terms of movement still left on my on-premise. Are you giving me a better rate? And that's how the negotiation is happening with most of the OEMs, whether it is Azure, for that matter, AWS and GCP. Then there are other virtualizations also available. So those players are very different, but then there are case basis where, you're talking virtualization in a separate scenarios and, you have a plethora of clouds out there up with my miniature use cases. But the big three are the Azure, AWS, and the GCPs. Right. So basically, that's why people have started moving on to cloud. So let's understand the major pitfalls. There are many pitfalls. The moment we say we are multi-cloud, the scenario becomes complex. So earlier there was one dragon to manage. Now there are multiple triggers to manage. If anyone from an IT operations who has been managing cloud can raise hands and tell me, are they able to manage one single operation and how are they trying to cope up with multi cloud operations? Right, Monisha already said there are challenges in its own. Com- uh, Governance becomes a issue. Now, why governance will become issue? Because resources get fragmented across the workloads. So if I have a workload A and it gets deployed on AWS, fine, everything that goes on AWS for that workload. And then there is one single small integration point that is within workload, which is already provisioned on Azure for that matter. Then you'll have to have a connectivity between AWS and Azure. Now, Munish, is that scenario right at some places at your on your shop floor? Okay, Munish.
Absolutely. Anand. So that's
Yeah.
that's the challenge.
Okay, Preeti, you will face some of these when you are migrating. So I don't know whether you are already facing this though, but once you have a deployment on a particular cloud for a customer, then there is a another workload that is running and things need to be integrated. Then there has to be a wiring done across these cloud providers also. So those will be one of the challenges, right?
Okay.
Okay. Then in terms of ensuring consistency, no, who will know better than the BFSI segment, right? There has to be a very great, because those are the spearheaders in terms of setting up security standards and having compliance standards for data. So their consistency carries a huge importance. They have different separate department who manages data governance from consistency standpoint on also from a compliance standpoint. Right, so they have a very in a dedicated department for that. Now the worst part is, how do we have a single pane to manage that? Right, then there are if you really go and speak with folks from that department, they'll always say, I have to look into 5 different windows. There is no one single tool which I'm able to look into for my consistency. There is no single pane because everyone has adopted cloud. And the multi-cloud, I don't know whether it was more from a strategy or let's start the journey and then we'll take it on the run, had been a thought process with some of the organization. And now the migrations of the newer workload has stopped because now they have realized that there are many such pitfalls which have to be circumvented. There has to be closure to this before we move on to the next workloads, right? And then there is increased in cost. Went there saying that okay, we will save cost, but then the tools of multi-cloud management, because no single cloud will give you an offering on the other cloud, and then there will be a cost increase because you will have to opt for tools so that you can manage those. Now, deploying these tools will be an issue currently. Now, where do we keep our firewalls with which organization and everything then becomes a part of your multi-cloud strategy. One of the other challenges, I said, one of the challenges I already narrated, which is integration challenges. There are certain services which are duplicate also. And then there is a performance variability where you say one of the workload is running faster here. One of the same workload is not running to the T on the next. So which is the best way? Because I don't know whether they have taken into consideration the latencies of their integration points, and then there will be a disparity in terms of performance. Many a times it happens on the firewall where certain rules not optimized, or certain bandwidth not optimized. Most of the time they don't know how many routes they have to run through so that the query reaches the right database. So whether the firewall is fine-tuned, the routes are being fine-tuned, and there are lots and lots of complexity. Like, and then because every cloud has its own standard, the organization which adopts that cloud has a problem in standardization because he has to adhere to all three clouds. So Monish, is this consideration, is this what you're facing currently? Monish? Okay.
Sorry, I was talking on mute. So,
Oh,
so
okay.
these are our typical challenges apart from the skill set. Uh,
Okay. Skill set is a different dragon to manage. Let's get into the people skills a little later because
yeah.
this is
So,
the
but
this
that's one
this
of the. These are some of the uh, major top of mind things.
anything which is being missed out here you think is the challenge may add so that it adds to the uh you know knowledge base of other people. Is there anything which you think
I think one of the challenges now there are similar kind of services available on all the clouds.
correct?
At different points in time, these services have come up. In certain cases, GCP was ahead of Google in terms of GCP was ahead of AWS in terms of the AI capabilities and some of the machine learning capabilities. Now,
Correct.
now more or less everyone gives a capability, but something we used to have, we have Gartner kind of publishing comparison across technologies.
Hmm.
Uh, is there any agency kind of trying to compare these capabilities, not cost, but in terms of technology, technical capabilities, one or the other?
Okay. I have not come across someone, there are still links provided by the OEMs themselves, right? If you open or get into AWS documentation, they'll say this is my service and this is my competitor service. This is how you map it on Azure. This is called as A, and now we are calling it C. So this is available with us as well. Now, same thing is happening with
So that's
GCP.
just a name equivalent. Me too
Huh,
types. I'm also here now
correct, correct,
as
correct,
part of
correct.
the releases. Uh,
Right, right, right.
but is there someone kind of comparing? Because see, as consumers,
Hmm,
till you don't try, experiment, it works, does not work.
hmm,
Uh, that's a big challenge. That there are no comparisons available, and since it is going to be like a multi-cloud, using SaaS or using services from one cloud to the from the other one is going to be a
hmm.
very common phenomena through
Yes,
through the layers of integration. So
yes,
so
but
is a GCP service better than an AWS in certain context, whereas AWS is better than. So like while there is a general understanding that Oracle workload, if you have an Oracle workload, it based on a OCI. But if it's
correct,
and it's a Microsoft workload based on a Microsoft in terms
correct.
of tech, commercial, functional, uh, resiliency capability. But
Right.
if it's a neutral workload, which is the best service provider to put it on?
Okay. So let me answer that question. Great that because I will not have got it covered in any of the slides ahead. So let me answer that question right here also. First and foremost is on the broader categorizations of what workload to run where. There are certain rule books, right? Rightly identified. Now we have Rajesh who has an Oracle case. Correct? He has an Oracle Rack example, and they have already Oracle deployed on premise. They want looking or a DR. An example. I'm giving just an example so that everyone understands. And then they are also looking for this workload to move on to cloud. Now Oracle, the size is more than 20-30 TB of data for them. In such cases, with such a huge obvious choice for the database will be Oracle on cloud, that is OCI. Right? Let's get our database on OCI. Then comes the next scenario is OCI available in India? Number one. So there are all such questions someone has to answer when they are adopting any services coming from different OEM providers. There is no one single place where, if someone comes out with such solutions, they will not be coming out with solutions for every country or geo-specific scenarios also. So, for example, you are heavily, Manish, you are heavily regulated by for example, RBIs and the IRDAs of the world, right? Coming from an insurance standpoint. Now
Right.
they say meeting to coming next to all this. So when we are speaking on this, you see, even though you wanted to adopt Oracle, Oracle does not have a data center in India,
Mm.
right? Then people like us had it, right? Number one. So these are the on the broader level. On the micro level, what is happening is someone now Preeti will be the best judge, because Preeti has a plethora of applications which she and her team are migrating, right? Now, most of these applications, someone will have used a native flight service already inside that application. Now, no matter what, you cannot deploy if they have used something from Azure. You cannot deploy that workload onto AWS and say we will connect it to Azure. Does not make sense, because we don't know the latency involved in it. So on a broader categorization, we will be able to do it on a very, very high level categorization in terms of Oracle databases, connectivity issues, uh, global load balancers. Now these are very few services to start with, Monish. But the more you get into typical cloud native services, even though at first you say that this service is better out here, then that workload can sit there. Now, if you are looking for someone telling me which service is better there, then anyone from your application team will be, because they will be doing that research. And then that will come from an app mod team who will tell this service is better on this cloud. But for many n number of reasons, a particular stack of that service is fine on cloud A, but the other stack is not proper in cloud B.
Right.
Right. So in such cases, how are we? For example, I say that AWS is good on ingestion, and then you put in certain tools to ingest your data, and then you have a problem. Now I have to do an analytics and massage my data, and I'll have to put it through data mining and putting it through a data bricks and various layers of data warehousing. Now 2 layers work here, 3 layers work there, and then there is someone called as Databricks saying that we are an independent cloud and we provide a SaaS service, right? So we have such challenges, and there's no one single place. Now the architect here, the enterprise architect here comes to our rescue. He will be the right place to understand, number one, from a standpoint, what is the roadmap of the org? What kind of workloads are there on the shop floor? Based on that only, you will be able to take that decision. Manish,
Right.
I hope.
I get that. So there is no, I understand there is no straight answer. It's a very use case by use case
Yes,
evaluation, POC, maybe
yes,
carry out some pilots, um, try out some services, see how does
yes.
it scale for that use case.
Now, those are the pilots someone has to try it out, because you are looking for those quick wins first, and your tick marks on all the checklist you have in terms of various services, as well as the resiliency part, the security part. All those checklist items have to be in place, so that we can actually say that this workload can go here.
Right.
So identifying itself is a challenge, right? And then you have other complexities, like a vendor comes in and says, sir, this is the tool you should be using, something like a video KYC, which a bank doesn't build on their own. Example, I'm giving an example. Don't catch me for words there, but
No
video
worries. No worries.
KYC, a video KYC coming in, and then this guy says, I'm using very heavily AWS. Now the
Hmm.
people running Azure, they say we do not have AWS. So oh shit, the guy who has implemented says we were funded by AWS, so we deployed and created a workload on AWS. It is using certain cloud native services of AWS, and we have nothing on Azure.
So
And there
that's
are
where
cases.
Anand, I think you covered standardization. See, there is
Yes,
no
yes.
standardization.
The lack of standardization I covered, right? But these are the scenarios which are there, and then there is no one single answer, no one single place where you can run through and say this is the rule book. No one can do that.
And hopefully, I'm looking at a single pane to take care of all the pains.
that we will look into, because that's where we come, there will be scenarios, but then those pains need to be built by the org and not by any other person, but someone, a manager, right, managed services partner who can help you there. Right.
Sure.
Let's move on to the next out. So this is where, I discuss most of this, saying that, multi-cloud strategy for your rescue. So this is how the multi-cloud case has been discussed, because there are applications, scenarios which are using cloud native, and then you have to adopt those, number one. So this is where you say that the strategy has to be in place, where you do a very careful planning, just narrated that. But what it instigates, its implementation of robust governance and management practice. We there has to be a team, normally a mature, mature multi-cloud adoption. There is a cloud COE which normally sits and who manages this, where they are the right people to identify workload suitability for the cloud. And these cloud COE is for someone who ensures efficiency through optimization of the deployment in a right way. And if this has to be in place, and it should run as a well-oiled engine, then it has to have undergo regular reviews and all those stuff with, and this should be your cloud, a multi-cloud strategy. I hope you agree on this. If disagree, please raise hands and let's speak. Okay, so this is what multi-cloud strategy will be, how to adopt, how, where to deploy and all those stuff. But if you really look into and isolate a problem, then you will have to take one cloud at a time, because cloud adoption in itself is a different use case to handle, or in a different scenarios where there are multiple clouds coming in. There's another challenge sitting up there. Cloud adoption at a core will require a business case, and then you define your adoption strategy, putting certain financial numbers, and then educate, train, skill set your people, and start moving towards providing security and governance policies. This is what actually adoption at a broader level means. Oh, but wait, there is something that every OEM comes in. They come with a different theory, right? Which says that this is how you should adopt us. That's what Azure will say. This is my cloud adoption framework. I have, you should be using this, and this is what you should be doing. Most of these at places are jargons, but most of these places are on which other services are architected inside an OEM. And then there is a different challenge with a different OEM, where the thought process for cloud adoption at another OEM like AWS is very, very different, where they say that technology, processes, organization, product, they run as your horizontals. And then there is a vertical in terms of people, governance, platform, security, and operations. So they say this is how you adopt AWS, right? Yeah, let's see the third partner saying that in a people, technology, process, these are the three different pillars, or three different variables, and this will keep changing, and this is how you adopt cloud, and that's how GCP speaks. Right now people start scratching their head, what exactly are we doing? And if you have to really actually build the right scenarios here, there has to be a managed services provider who will come to your rescue to build all this. The managed services provider has to be knowledgeable, who will bring all this together for you. Okay, any questions till now? Preeti, Ashish, Divesh.
So
Hi,
Anand,
Divesh.
Anand, one question.
Hmm.
I don't know whether you're covering it in your subsequent slides.
Hmm.
With multi-cloud, a lot of data will move across clouds, and that's where
I'm,
the cost of egress and ingress.
so that too I will be covering because you think it is part of that's the reason I said, right, in one of the slides, right, it increases cost.
So
It
while
is,
it increase, I'm saying, see, there are certain cloud providers who claim that they are cheaper than the other one. So all of
Okay.
that, so going to multi-cloud is also a cost kind of distribution. While there's a risk mitigation, it's a cost distribution strategy too. Now,
Correct.
while while some of the workloads moving to a cheaper cloud or a
Hmm.
less costly, I wouldn't say cheaper, but a less costly cloud, uh,
Hmm.
will kind of balance out the cost. But the cost of egress and ingress with multi-cloud is going to be the biggest factor,
Yes, it
and to
is the
get a
big.
visibility about it. And to get a right
Uh,
visibility about see the services that are used within a cloud provider, there are dashboards available with each of the native cloud providers. But when data is moving across clouds, what is the cost? How do you kind of estimate that?
okay. See, again, the cost estimation happens as a part of a workload movement, right? We just can't generically say that egress will be this much. What you get as a part of egress, because there is no tagging in terms of which data went as egress from what workload. The service providers will never give you this. They'll say that 20 GB went out. That's simple as that, right? And then we will have no clue how much egress will happen. Forget multi-cloud. Tomorrow, if you have multiple data centers in example, I'll take Azure, because that's where you have three data centers currently in India: West India, Central India, and South India. Right. So even we move things from one cloud, one data center to another data center, there is a egress charge. Are you aware? I don't know whether you are aware of that, but there is an egress charge even there. So egress is a different animal to take altogether. And yes, you are right. There will be huge egress charges when we are talking all this. Luckily, all
Mhm.
these cloud adopters have taken a right decision, saying that okay, ingress is free, so that you bring in data. Otherwise, it would have been a kind of double whammy.
Yeah, yeah. Incoming free, outgoing is chargeable.
So at least, so we do not have a double whammy. But yes, bandwidth, it is very difficult for someone to actually analyze in what came and how. Very, we will have a good amount of tools which will able to bifurcate it, saying that this is the kind of workload this is the kind of data that moved away from this application. So you will have to have right network monitors to do that, because it will flow through your network, and there will be a point where it will be moving out, but then this network watchers will be configured at a workload level, so that they watch what data is moving out, because the more data is moving out, then it is meant on this particular network path, then it is an egress that will happen. So we should be knowing in that detail. Then only we will be able to identify what is the right network cost to it. I hope I answered what you are looking
Yeah.
for, Monish.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So these are the challenges which we spoke, right? And then someone who will help you with your cloud adoption has to be a bright managed services, because these are the people who sit in thick and thin of the entire workload. So they are sitting with your infra team, the cloud COE team, the application team. And if this vendor is from is managing different clouds, if there are three different vendors managing three different clouds, then your cloud COE will have a tough time. I'll tell you why, right? See, this is what happens from a cloud adoption journey. There are five things one has to do. One has to configure workloads, govern workload, secure them, protect them, and monitor them. This is the adoption journey which any cloud has to do, right? And then if this has to be properly defined, then someone has to make sure that the governance is happening across all three clouds. The security is across all three clouds, and also from an uh, on-prem data center. If there is any other virtualization cloud, someone would have opted from a third party, then even that will come into those governance issues. So you will have a different knowledge, you will require a different knowledge base which will help you build this. And that is has been a challenge currently where organization are restructuring their deals so that they get in a single partner, which even though they fail, but they are trying to make sure that there is one single partner so that the mandate goes very clear and there are multiple architects coming from managed services team who actually come and say that this is how it has to be. This is how it has to be deployed. I'll tell you what, there is a more other scenarios which comes from a mature adoption, seeing that, okay, I have a use case, I have say cloud COE, which are center of excellence, right? There is a scenario which they do certain experiment and they deploy workload on cloud. Then there is an organized. So this is a matured operations in terms of any cloud adoption, right? You will have all this in place, right? But this is still, certain blocks from in saying that it's a business application owner or a business owner saying this. Have you looked it from a viewpoint of an infra? What actually does this mean? This is what it is. Are you able to see the image clearly? Let me know if you are unable to. I'll try to zoom then.
Please zoom in a bit.
Hardik,
Yes, sir. Can you please zoom in a bit? It's not.
it is blur, is it?
No, sir. It's very small actually.
Okay. What do I do? How do I zoom that out?
So I don't know who was raising that. You could zoom it on your device. Team lets you
Okay.
zoom it on the device.
Okay.
So
Report.
so Anand, the person who's like not able to see, you can zoom it on the device locally.
Okay. So those who, because in entirety it has to be in proper. So he is saying he's from my account management team, Monish, Hardik. But anyone else who is unable to view.
No, I while I cannot, but I zoomed it on my device, so I'm able to.
Okay. Okay. But you see this, and it is insane without a tool. So if you do not have a tool, managing it from a standpoint of multiple cloud solutions provider giving you inputs, looking for governance, identifying multiple anomalies across scenarios like, you know, adherence, looking from a governance scenario of tagging, provisioning, doing resource management, doing finance management, doing service management, and then there are general services like service catalog, your DDoS, your network of your firewalls, and all those stuff. This is very, very difficult and a tough job to manage, and it cannot be managed through a one particular tool. Now, that is the challenge currently with most of the service providers. So those who have adopted cloud, multi-cloud, they didn't thought of this when adopting, and then suddenly now they have realized that this is getting difficult and difficult because we do not have a single tool to manage. And even from an infra team will know this better. I don't know, Divesh, about your profile. So that's the reason I'm not asking you. I don't know. But anyone from an infra team though? Okay, fine. So let's get on to the next slide. So we need to manage these challenges, and what are those? Kilto is known, right? But also understand that if I want to go and automate through a single plane, then different cloud providers will have a different API, right? Synchronizing workloads across multi-cloud will be a different challenge altogether, right? Securing data, securing workloads, right? So you should have a right tool which will help you actually. So this is what I'll try to give you an example and see whether we are able to see a single window pane. There are very few tools though which will give you those single window pane. So these are certain tools, and this is a multi-cloud management solution landscape which one can look into, saying what are the tools available and what are the feature areas they are covering. I'll try to explain one of these tool and see how easy it is. From landscape is little mature on that side though, but this is where you will end up, right? So before moving there, I just wanted to know, you know, if there is a landscape which is of identifying the right tools. There is more that will happen here, where you'll require more tools though, but which I'll speak a little later in the few slides down the line. If we can move on to the next slide, I'll try to put in something called as Azure Arc for telling you how does a single pin window helps. But here the challenges for multi-cloud is complexity, regulations, compliance, inconsistency, legacy, latency. Now these are certain scenarios, and most of these get covered if we start monitoring them through a single window pane, right? We start governing from a single control plane. So Azure Arc is one of those tools which will help you do this, where you can actually have a single pane, and through that you can have a visibility into most of your things. I'll try to give you a small demo as well. So this is where this particular tool, which is Azure Arc, is an agent based scenario which will help you see and monitor your services, and it will give you centralized visibility across operations and compliance. And then see, you can see running services anywhere. But again, looking from a standpoint of a particular other cloud service, cloud native services, Azure Arc will have its own limitation. So if you want to monitor Azure services, fine, but any other services apart from Azure, so any AWS services, it will have its own limitations there. And this is what it will look into, it will define and put in right guardrails, and if you can write right policies and try to monitor it through Azure Arc, I think you will be able to see that. And I'll try to give you a small demo based on this. Let me see if I can have someone's help. So I'm trying to assist. Vidhi, you there?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Vidhi, can you just take the control in terms of do a screen share and see, display your screen, please.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Sir.
So anyone who were part of the scenarios of managing infrastructure earlier, the visibility in terms of infrastructures is through
Uh,
agent based. Can you just
Hope so,
open
sir. My screen is
screen
visible.
is screen is visible. Get into Azure Arc. Okay. Get into the overview. Yeah. So Divesh, Monish, Preeti, Rajesh, and Vikas. This is the Azure Arc, right? As a tool. Now, if you look into you can they say that add your infrastructure for free. So if you click on add there, the middle one, very no in the So this is how you add your infrastructure. I'll just try, wait. Go back, go back. Vidhi, I'm seeing the add servers with Azure app. If you can go back to the previous screen, please. Okay. Okay, there is wait. Fine. There is a delay at my end. Okay. So this is what you can add as an infrastructure, right? These are the scenarios which now ironically it says that Azure Arc virtual machine there it is in preview, which means suddenly the scenarios for even Microsoft they say that putting servers has to be very fast, and they first tried creating servers or adding servers other than Azure because they knew that Azure monitoring always happens, but from a single window pane, they were not appearing here. And that's where they're saying the Azure Arc virtual machines, they'll come up here. Okay, so if you, I just want to tell you how simple it is to generate and add a server. If you can click on servers, add server. Okay, add a single server because okay, now scroll down and you see to it, scroll down, select some detailing, select a resource group, please. So someone from an IT infrastructure, if you see that there's a particular scenario where it says connectivity method. Now, connectivity method is more in terms of, how do the agents connect to the Arc repository or how Arc gets connected to that repository, because these agents will push data into a repository. Now, how does that data gets transferred? And that is the reason we have a public endpoint or a proxy server or a private endpoint. So normally when getting data from a particular data center, we set up a proxy server and say that pull data from that proxy server, and then the proxy server pushes data into Azure Arc. So if you can get a click on the next scenario. Okay, so this is where it is asking you if I have to tag a server, how do I tag? And you can apply your tag. Now this is useful. Scroll down, yeah, scroll down more. You can add custom tags also. So this is if you can put in certain tags there with the fast while I discuss. Okay, so this is useful for to identify the right resource, and anyone who has not done any tagging on other environments, or the tags are there but then they are not readable by Azure Arc. Azure Arc provides the facility so that you can tag your resources. So the visibility becomes easier to filter through in terms of these tags. Okay, and eventually what you do is you download us and run this script. So, okay. So Vidhi, I type in your name there as workload owner and remember to put in the country. Yeah, country of region, say India. Okay, download and run script. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, so it is as good as simple as just running this small script, which has a scenario which is which downloads an installation package, installs an hybrid agent, which is an Arc agent, and then sudo command which gets connected with all the tags, and that's how a server is registered. Now, if you can click again back on the server scenario, I'll tell you how the server looks like. Click on Azure Arc, and you see that there are multiple ways you can write a multi-server script to add. So you click on Add Servers, Add Server again, and you can add multiple server add servers, and you can add multiple servers. So for a multi-server script, there's a different scripts that get generated. Now you can do your update management from a single pane across multiple of your data centers, and now you have one single window to manage your workloads or your machines. Now move back, do a back here. There are many such scenarios in terms of someone monitoring the high priority items like the Kubernetes cluster, the database servers and all, and it becomes a tool which comes in very handy. Can you just switch to your AWS scenario and see where the server lies?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is your server, right? And on Azure, where is that server? In Azure Arc.
Yeah,
Okay,
actions.
so this is where the servers will be listed. So any questions here, Monish, Divyesh, Rajesh, Vikas? This is how you try to look at from a single pane perspective. And obviously, most of these will be agent-driven tools. And at places where we forget the tagging part of it, then you'll have to individually go or write a script again. If you can click on one of the server items, please. Okay, so you can go and edit those tags, and that's how you look into this environment. Uh, Thank you, Vidhi, for this. Any questions so far on Rajesh, Vikas, Monish, Devesh on this?
No, got it.
Okay, so let me share where I left from. Let me see if you can share that. Thanks, Vidhi.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you able to see my screen? Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, from a single control plane. Now, this is what we saw, that there is a single control plane through Azure Arc. Moving on to the next scenario where we say this is consistency. We are building consistency. And then we have servers which are Azure enabled services. We have servers which are Azure enabled servers. We have data services and ML services.
Anand, I have a
Are
question here. Anand,
harmonious.
the mic is just enough activated. I think it's still deactivated for a lot of participants, but nevertheless. So, what you mentioned as an Azure Arc, now, do we need to have an account set up on Azure?
You
Because
already will have an HDFC, like
we,
you already have an Azure, right?
so while we have Azure some footprint, we are largely an AWS shop.
Yeah, I'm aware of. Okay.
So, but as a customer, you need to set up an account with Azure, and then
Yes,
only you
you will
can.
have, you will have, but you know, this is just an indication that you should be having a multi-cloud tool. This is nothing in terms of, you're someone looking only for Azure Arc though. The idea here was that, there has to be a single pane window from which you should be looking through, so that you
Right.
can have a right governance and control on all your resources, whether on-prem or any other three OEMs, top three OEMs or any other OEM, cloud provider.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the idea. I'll try to get into scenario, what else will be available. I'll try to give you more detailed scenarios, like this is how you will see your Arc enabled data services, right? And this is what you do. You have a controller, you have do integrations, then have your PaaS services. So PostgreSQL hyperscale you will be able to manage. Then you will be able to manage your SQL managed instances, or high availability of SQL servers across on-premise. So anything under your what you call SQL always on. What is the health of the HAs inside that clusters? So you get to monitor all this. Now this becomes a good monitoring tool. Now, if you want to have something multi-cloud, this goes as bare minimum. And then at these places, you'll get to know that, whether my backups are happening properly, my patching is happening properly across scenario. So anyone coming from Monish, you coming from a BFSI, right? So BFSI, there is a mandate every quarter your system should be updated. Now, how of them more often you don't get a downtime, and then your end users will not give you saying that okay, don't restart my system and all those stuff. Now you From here, you as in your organization from here will get a know a window where the patching and what is the state of that patching. Start pushing it to the workload owner saying that your workload is not being patched, you are non-compliance. This is these reporting becomes very easier. And rather than infrastructure team taking into, if you can give a right enabled view to your workload owners, they these responsibilities can be transferred. Then now this doesn't actually are no longer will be your IT what you call operations kind of scenario, because they'll have to make sure that they should give the right downtimes. Then it becomes an IT responsibilities. So someone has to queue them up for the patching and say my patching should happen on this. So this becomes a more responsibility shift to most of the application owners, and that is what will give you those right patching scenarios in terms of closing these patches on time. I know there is a challenge there because I also wanted provide managed service to one of the bank. You would have saw that in the customers list, but I am facing that issue as well. Preeti, how about you? From an application standpoint, do you face any issues on patchings? You will be having patching related issues on your.
We have just
Uh,
started and we are exploring it, so we have not got into that problem. But at least I will know that these are something which will come up.
oh God help you then, because it's a difficult scenario to be in, right? So though you have not started, the right strategy will how many of these will be turning into a Kubernetes cluster will help you manage the scenario a little better than just doing a lift and shift for workloads.
Right.
Just on the lighter side of it, though every workload will have its own deserves a due respect on their own constraint side, but most of these can be tackled if you have the uh, clustering in terms of you're moving a different deployment strategy. uh, Putting it into a Kubernetes cluster will help.
Sure, Anand, thank you.
Yeah. So this is regarding data Arc enabled data services. Furthermore, if you have the right integrations, you'll have a rise in resource inventory, your billings, your log metrics, backup, retentions. You get to know knowledge base of all this. Right. So I'm giving a little more view of how the setup will look like. If you see, there are multiple cloud centers like Azure, you have Azure Stack, HCI systems, then you have VMware, vSphere, AWS Cloud, Google Cloud. So basically, if you see this is a typical multi-cloud setup, right? Those who are using a multi-cloud scenario, this is what bare minimum you will have. Most of them will have VMware. Obviously, their on-premises workloads are running VMware because that's one of the more optimized virtualization tool most of the organization have opted for. And then there are some organization who look into Azure Stack. Very few implementations, though, from an India standpoint, but there are few deployments in India from an Azure Stack HCI. And then you see that all this need to be visualized. Sorry. So now you look into the Arc enabled servers and the SQL server. How are we governing them through a policy scenario? And if you see a bracket coming in there from an policy which is a healthcare related, so HIPAA or high trust, and some similar policies for BFSI is coming in from IRDA kind of scenario, or RBI governed scenarios, or for MITI related scenarios. So you can start defining your policies, and from that policies you can start looking from an compliance from a single window view. So this is what you will be having, and this is what you will be doing at a mature state on a multi-cloud environment. So this is all in terms of a multi-cloud and the way one should be managing it. Normally, a service provider will come handy helping you on all this because he will have this view of a multi-cloud. Enterprise are getting matured enough to understand all this. But any questions till now on this? I'll wait for two couple of minutes. Bindu. Any questions based for this? Monish, Preeti, Rajesh.
No, nothing from my side.
Okay. So
No.
very quickly, thanks, Preeti. So very quickly, Monish and Preeti and Rajesh. See, now that you understood that this will happen, and this is how it will move towards a maturity state. Now understand, what's coming in, what is the new age IT operation will look like, because very soon this landscape is also changing, and there are different challenges altogether to manage this, right? You have complexity of IT environments, you have data volume. Someone from a life insurance, Monish, you will have a better visibility on this from a data volume and a velocity. Someone from applications standpoint like Preeti, if you want to actually understand what is the root cause, how soon do you get a root cause, and if you are part of a larger organization, now these will be your operational challenges. How do you do incident management? How do you do continuous improvement and optimization with such a large landscape? Now that will be a challenge. And in all such cases, there's one guy one tool or one technology which will come to your rescue is AI ops. So artificial intelligence in your operations is where, because kind of volume. I'll give you Monish, one I had been last week, I had been to one of the automotive industry, and they say that we have almost 600, 700 servers, right? And give you numbers for the use case. And they say that, there are certain small events that happens and logs scenario from an optimization standpoint and all. So monthly they get 12,000 events. Okay. Now, so he is asking for, how do I make sense out of this 12,000 events? Rajesh, you're getting the scenario. Preeti, Monish.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
12,000 events, how are you even if those events happen, what are you going to do of those 12,000 events? So what they should looking into is someone should understand this 12,000 events. Out of this, they should correlate it together and then say, okay, this is what I am supposed to do. And then there is one action which gets fired so that at least 5,000 or 8,000 of those events are not occurring the next month. That will be an ideal scenario. Yes.
So Anand, the out of 12,000, how many are relevant? See,
No, all 11,000, all 12,000 are relevant. See,
okay.
there are nothing false. There is nothing false. Those are being, I am talking about a matured scenario.
Okay.
ठीक ठीक है तो matured scenario में you will get these many events, right? You very well on AWS, even if you will have so many servers there, right? So 3-4 events coming from one of the server points or one of the endpoint will actually give you that.
Yeah, but so then what you alluding is what's the underlying root cause? See, the root cause could be like one root cause causing maybe multiple events. So you have to get to the root cause. How do you get to the
Correct.
root
So
cause?
that's precisely what I am trying to tell, because now if you don't have someone which is an automation scenario, right, Manish? You do not have something which is automated. Then you cannot correlate them and do a root cause. A small
Correct.
configuration, for example, a small configuration would have triggered that example. No one will knew. But if a right system is there, which is actually looking into it, And then there is a scenario where you have a strong workflow written there saying that if such scenarios happen, this is the kind of scenario, go close it automatically. That will be the next level of operations that will happen. That is where the world is going. But for that, we should understand what is that currently our infrastructure is having so that we can be at that stage. That's the kind of, this is the thought process I'm trying to put through this webinar or this session, right? Because what you will end up is you will be running IT operations like this. You'll have your apps and web servers pushing data as in from events, logs, and metrics perspective, right? And then someone has to look into and apply that and say that, okay, there are certain things which are unsupervised, then certain things there has to be an intelligence applied on this, right? And from a human perspective, if you want to do it from a human perspective, it will be very difficult to manage this. Are you agreeing on this, Munish?
Yes, yes. So it's
Sorry?
humanly not possible. It's humanly not possible to kind of do a correlation across, I mean, thousands of events getting generated.
Correct, correct. So basically what we are looking into an IT operation which looks like this will end up looking like from an AI ops perspective like this, where you control, collect your logs, metrics, wire that data, document is text it, observe it, and then create a proper analysis out of it. Now, how again, it is not manual. So you'll have to build machine learning models to run through this so that you can take necessary action, right? Which means what you will eventually do is AI ops. There is artificial intelligence which will get into your operations and which will help you do this, right? And if that is what is required, then let's understand, are our systems today ready for such scenarios? So there are certain prerequisites which we'll have to make sure that they happen right today. So tomorrow we are ready for putting in a tool which is AI ops, or in identifying a right AI ops tool and say, okay, this is what is required. And those will be your data collection and integration, the kind of quality data you will be using and pre-processing. Then there has to be infrastructure readiness. Now, what do you mean by infrastructure? You have the right amount of compute, storage, you have use right amount of network connectivity so that it gives you those infrastructure readiness, then your data governance and security. So you should be ready with all these prerequisites, or in scenario where you should be trying to put this in place as a strategy point, saying that okay, this is what we will require tomorrow down the line, so that we can build AI ops tomorrow. But the readiness has to start today, because that's where the new generation IT operations are moving. So I'll try to give you an AI platform. So this is basically an AI platform which keeps understanding the anomalies, detections, and they start doing the forecasting. So whether it is from a workload standpoint where it gives you inputs in terms of cost, saying that on a first 10 days the workload is heavier, the last 10 days the workload is heavier, and in middle 10 days there's hardly any workload. So by doing such, can I generate an AI trigger event or a triggering event which will cut size in terms of my workload, and I reduce the compute automatically, rather than going manual, doing a manual automation of starting and stopping. Ideally it should be triggered through a particular machine learning tool which says that this has to get fired. And for that, you will have to define your standard operating procedures for that. So that you should have right monitoring tools, right data collection, so that you are able to do these scenarios, or you are able to capture this scenarios and then nip them in the bud when and you have a right structured, diligent data center, a robust data center, and efficient data center. So that's the kind of platform you should be building tomorrow down the line from a multi-cloud strategy. This is that AI adoption level. What is required right now will be manual and reactive. How do we start moving proactive is through putting the right monitoring tool, doing it manual monitoring though, but eventually start writing our standard operating procedures and start doing the predictions right, and then eventually the automation that will get triggered on those predictions. So you start building your MI models from a predictive analysis and then eventually triggering those for your efficiency or in terms of app operations. So what does that involve? So this involves something from a ML standpoint where these are typical ML use cases for your IT ops, saying that time series forecast, I'll have to give you right forecast. Then smart ticketing, and most 70% or 80% of your tickets should be automated. So they should be rightly classified. They should be rightly clustered and identify deduplications. So you have to write it right, put in right workflow recommendation. You should have right workflow generation. And eventually this will help you do that root cause, right? So this is how your root cause will happen. So these are the use cases from a ML standpoint on your IT ops, which will help you build your IT operations of the next level. Any questions so far? Monish, Preeti, Rajesh?
No.
No.
Okay, fine. So this will be your workflows. A workflow on one side, it will be an artificial intelligence workflow, and the other side, it will be an operations workflow to close the event. Right. So this is what you'll have to build in terms of ML, and then you will start working in terms of creating a more robust and efficient data center. So that's it from a standpoint of ML ops, AI ops, and multi-cloud strategy. I am actually done with the sessions. If you have any questions before I could summarize. Any questions on any of these topics discussed or any other questions, because we have another 20 minutes on hand. So I will be answering that.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay, fine. So finally, if this is the conclusion out of this small discussions which we had, that multi-cloud adoption strategy is to be revisited. That is what from an introspection organization someone has to do. Then cloud adoption to be in line with OEM's cloud adoption framework. Why? Because if you want to automate that particular OEM services, then it has to be from a cloud adoption framework thought processes of that OEMs. If that is not in place, then automation on those will be a little difficult. Then your IT operation should be optimized. The new age IT operation should be efficient by AI ops. So we'll have to start doing the preparation for it by gathering right amount of data, and understand please that you'll have to hurry up gathering the data at least and prepare the readiness, because you will be missing on operational data, because your correlations will be late, your machine learnings will be late based on your data's coming in. So already late that people have started using AI ops already. And then you'll have to identify certain IT ops models so that you can those can be trained for more efficient and operational.